Please help me in welcoming Melissa Harrison, Vice President, Communications and Marketing, Consumer Technology Association, producer of CES, to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Come on, I know it's not that early in Las Vegas. Good morning and welcome to CES 2025. We are thrilled to have you here. We cannot believe that it is time for CES again already this year. It is so exciting to be back in Las Vegas, and I can't wait for all that you're going to explore and see this year. We have a real treat for you this morning. We have SiriusXM and I gotta tell you, we have a bunch of fan favorites at CES and CTA of Ashley Flowers. It is truly incredible that we have them here on the stage today. As you know, at CES, C-Space is the heart of the content and advertising culture, where we explore the trends transforming the entertainment we produce and consume. So I'm thrilled to welcome two trailblazers in audio entertainment, pushing the medium forward and helping millions of people reach the voices, stories, and the music they love. Jennifer Witz is the CEO of SiriusXM, one of North America's leading audio entertainment companies. In her more than 2 decades at SiriusXM, Jennifer has been front and center as the entertainment industry has transformed, driving the company's digital transformation, expanding its content offerings, advancing its streaming and in-car technology, and supporting the growth of its advertising business. She's known for her strategic vision and commitment to building a powerful and diverse slate of top voices across entertainment, news, music, sports, and talk radio. Today, she will be joined by Ashley Flowers, whose voice you may recognize from her hit podcast, Crime Junkie. But Ashley is so much more than that. She's a CEO, a founder, a crime stopper, and a passionate advocate for victims. You are in for a real treat today. Jennifer and Ashley will dive into the evolution and future of audio entertainment, from satellite radio to streaming to podcasts. They'll explore the impact of tech on media consumption, how art and science come together to move listeners, and the biggest challenges and opportunities facing audio creators today. So please, without further ado, join me in welcoming Jennifer Witz and Ashley Flowers.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's my first time here at C-Space, and actually my first time back at CES in 5 years, and I'm really excited to be here with you all. At SiriusXM, our vision is to shape the future of audio, where everyone can effortlessly connect to the voices, stories, and music they love wherever they are. Over the last 2 decades, we're proud to have been a foundation of the audio revolution, from innovations in space and in the car, across satellite and streaming. But while how we listen and the technology that's empowered that has changed dramatically, what remains really just the same is why we listen. And we are entertained and informed by audio, moved and enlightened, and most of all, it helps us feel connected. So the enduring power of audio is centered around its ability to bring people together and to change hearts and minds. It's an innately personal medium. And yet, with innovations across generative AI and immersive venues like the Sphere just down the street, we're at a poignant moment in audio's history and also its future. And who better to discuss all of this with than the #1 female podcaster in the nation, New York Times best-selling author and CEO and founder of AudioChuck, Ashley Flowers.
Thank you.
So if you're a true crime fan, and I know many of you are out there, you are sure to know and love Ashley's podcast, Crime Junkie, and the entire AudioChuck network. Ashley has been a proud member of the SiriusXM family, I think, since 2021, and we've supported the growth of her business as well. And her story is a great one to cover today because it's a fantastic example of what the evolution of audio technology has really enabled, and she's got a unique vantage point that I think will be helpful as we look at what's next. So let's dive in. Okay, so Ashley, I think we're going to have a bit of a discussion and back and forth. I know you'll have some questions for me, but the first question I have for you is I would love to start by hearing about how and why you found your way into audio, and in particular, the role that the evolving tech landscape has played in that. And maybe you can talk a little bit about what that's done for you in terms of creating your connection to audiences.
Yeah, audio is just something that I always loved. I mean, when I was little, I used to go into my parents' minivan to catch this one radio show for kids back in the day. I fell in love with audiobooks long before podcasting was mainstream. And truth be told, it was something that I loved, but it was also podcasting was the only space that would let me in. I was, didn't really come from a broadcasting background. I was, some random girl from Indiana. And when we started, the beauty of podcasting, which is still so beautiful, is anyone can do it. And all I needed was, when you talk about tech, all I needed was an RSS feed. And so when we first started, that was really what it is. And the RSS feed hasn't changed so much, but I think what's really changed is the tech on the business side, how we're measuring what is a download, what is a stream, how do you insert ads, how do you deliver ads? And the way that that's evolved in the 7 years that I've been in podcasting has been unbelievable. Anyone who was in podcasting, in October of 23, when Apple completely changed the way we measure downloads, it changed the business for so many of us. But I think it's exciting because I think we were a brand new space. Everyone says it's the Wild West. It still is a little bit. And I think the more accurate we're getting, the more we're figuring it out. I think it's better for creators. I think it's better for listeners. We really know who our audience is. I think it's better for advertisers. They're really knowing what's getting delivered, who are their ads reaching. And so I don't think we're done. It is constantly still evolving, but really it's been not so much on the creative side, but on the business side, where the tech has played such a massive role in the evolution.
Yeah.
And you asked me, how did I get started? I think for you, why have you stayed so long? I mean, you've been with SiriusXM for
a long time.
Almost 2 decades, right?
Yes, a little longer. Yeah.
What inspires you? What do you love about audio above all other mediums?
Yeah, so I've always thought there are 2 sets of people, generally. Those that, after a long day, kind of come home and gravitate towards video, right? It's turn the TV on or whatever your device of choice is. And those that sort of gravitate towards audio, and it could be your music collection or your favorite podcast or radio, like the example you gave of going into the car and listening to something. And I've always been passionate about audio. It's always been the first thing I want to do when I get home or I get on the subway to go to work. And I love it. And I love kind of that immersion you have when you're listening to something and you feel really connected to it. But I think if we take a step back, audio is so unique in terms of the science, the intimacy, and the connection that it affords. And particularly with science and the way the brain processes sound, it can really impact everything from your mood or your memories and your breathing or your heart rate. It's incredibly impactful on memory and your memory of listening to radio in the car. For any of you, I think if you hear a song you haven't heard in a long time, it'll just immediately take you back to that moment in your past. And I think that's so powerful. You just don't see that, I think, with a a lot of other media. And the intimacy of audio, I think, plays into that, right? Where audio can go where so many other media can't go, like the car, or like in your earbuds when you're jogging or something. And
people take baths with me sometimes.
Yeah, yes. And so I just think it creates that connection that you really can't get with video or other media. And I think there's something to the fact that, like, during the pandemic, we often heard at Sirius that the hosts were, just the constant companions that people were looking for, that was like almost a social surrogate for that time when you couldn't be with people in person. And so, the science, the intimacy, the connections, I think all of this is also what drives fandoms. And whether it's Swifties or it's your crime junkies, for instance. Yeah.
I think something too is it's, with the way AI is moving, I think we might get to like personal movies for each one of us, but it does allow you to like use your imagination, and I think it's what makes it so great is like you get to picture it exactly how you want it. It's so customized without the creator having to do all the customization. It's really interesting. So you've had this front row seat, if not being in the driver's seat this whole time, to the industry as it's changed. What in the last 20 years has surprised you the most or been the most unexpected? And especially in the last year with like how the rate of change is just speeding up.
That's it, right? The pace of innovation has just been so rapid over the last 2 decades. And it's really across 2 primary areas. It's how we listen that's changed, and you touched on this a little bit before, and it's also how people create, right, audio. And the technology of just how we listen has been fascinating over the last 2 decades, whether, for music, for instance, right, with vinyl or cassettes, or you think back, you had all these CDs and MP3s, and now, of course, streaming. And that's made music really global. And then that's, the technology has also powered the growth of audiobooks and podcasts, and you have all of this audio in your pocket on your phone. It's hard to imagine that from 20 years ago. And we all have connected devices in our homes, and then of course the quality of the hardware has grown dramatically too. So that just what you have in terms of your home speaker systems or your car systems, or again like these immersive venues like the Sphere, it's just been amazing to see the evolution of how audio is delivered. And then for creators, like you said, it's much easier to create, market, and distribute, whether it's music or podcast or a show. And that just affords so many opportunities for creators to build audiences. And I think the interesting thing is that, again, why we listen, while all this innovation has happened on sort of how we create and how we deliver audio, why we listen is still fundamentally the same, right? That it's that connection and the science of it, the intimacy that's really special about audio. So given all the breadth of content that's out there now, I think the big challenge is discovery, really, right? Finding the things that resonate with you. It's fantastic to see all these creators having the opportunity to distribute, but how do we actually find what we love? And I think that there's things like algorithms, and of course, with Pandora, we've had a great algorithm for music discovery that we continue to perfect. But what's really special, I think, about SiriusXM is the hosts and the programmers that we have who are really just experts in their fields, and they love what they do. They love the genre or the category of interest that they focus on, and that shows up in the content. And that's, I think, why listeners have built these real connections with our hosts. And it's just such a big part of who we are at SiriusXM to make sure that it's humans, right? Yeah. Creating this content and curating it and bringing it to our audiences. And look, I think creators like yourself have been able to leverage the broader SiriusXM podcast network to build your audiences, build your fan bases, and build your brands ultimately.
Yeah, and learning from one another. It's been great. Yeah.
So I have a question for you now. And I think we've all heard the 2024 election was sort of the year of the podcast, right? And it's been amazing to see that more and more people have gravitated toward podcasts, as a result around the world. And I think we're starting to really see the true power of the podcaster. So I think the influence that you have at the top of your game is phenomenal. And I wanted to ask you a few questions about that because, as you think about podcasting, what do you think it is about that or audio in general that really fosters this connection with audiences?
I mean, I think at the core of it, it is the intimacy. And I mean, we're in a world where we're just inundated with so much, and it's headlines, it's clickbait, it's these fast videos, and there's very few mediums where you get to spend time with the same person for hours a week, week after week, year after year. And what we've built in podcasting, myself and other podcasters, is a relationship. And I think a relationship with someone who has influence and who has an audience, that is so different. I mean, it's the way that you talk to your friends and you trust their opinions. Like you said, we've become these surrogate friends for people, and they've watched us grow up and change our minds and learn new things, and we've almost done that together. I think what I always say about podcasting that's so beautiful is I think it's one of the first two-way mediums where we're not just broadcasting this out, but we're really getting feedback from our listeners who feel like they know us. And so I think they're trusting us because they've watched us be consistent day in, day out, week in, week out, year over year. And I think that builds a relationship that you just cannot build with one post or with one 30-second video.
Yeah. And when was there a moment where you felt this big shift, and either for you personally with your podcast or just the industry in general?
I think it was when people stopped asking, what is a podcast? There was so long where people just didn't know the reach we had or the value we bring. It was just everyone's side hobby. And so I think when people started really recognizing, I feel like that shift really happened in 21, 22, at least for us, where it was no longer what is a podcast. I think that's when people really started understanding the power and the reach of it.
It's amazing because the technology's been around for 15 years, right?
Forever.
But it really has only come to the forefront, I think, in terms of audience expansion in the last 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
like you said. Yeah. So because you have such an incredible audience and brand and impact, how do you think about the responsibility you take on, especially with the storytelling you do in terms of true crime, and whether it's the work you do advocating for victims or for those wrongly convicted, or picking a brand partner? How do you think about that responsibility to the audience given the trust they have in you?
I always say I don't want to be an influencer, I want to have influence. And I think the way that you do that is through authenticity. And so that's the thing that I've really been very careful of never losing, is I respect so much the people who listen and who are willing to give me, again, not 30 seconds of their day, but hours of their week. And I think showing them, we've got every episode we've ever made, since 2018 when we were babies, are out there. And I think seeing how we've grown, how we've when we've made mistakes, when we've learned from them, when we've changed our minds. I want to build a world that is open to new things, new ideas, to open their hearts, open their minds. And I think that is so much of the responsibility for me, is putting myself out there as well, is not asking people to do something I'm not willing to do. And it's how I feel about the content. Again, when I think about the content, I want people to be open-minded, have open hearts, be willing to change your mind, be willing to learn something new. And I think if they're willing to do that with me, they also then deeply trust me when I tell them what my favorite toilet paper is. and I don't take that lightly. I think once you start, losing your authenticity even in one area, it affects everything. So when you talk about advertisers, I'm so strict about what we do and who we partner with, because I think the second that becomes false, everything I'm saying, I don't want them to look at that the same way.
Yeah, you want to make sure you have that trust across the board.
Exactly.
Yeah, so one of the biggest shifts in the audio landscape is the move to incorporate more video and more social. And as a creator, I think you've said before that you don't believe in video just for video's sake, right? That, and I tend to agree with that, by the way. Can you talk a little bit about your perspectives on this, video, social, other platforms, how you leverage them?
Yeah, I mean, when I created the podcast, like I said, I was creating it with audio in mind. I wasn't just talking for talking's sake. I thought about the way people envision things and put themselves in there, and it didn't necessarily one-for-one translate to video. And so many people said to me, like, well, they just want to see you. Just put a camera on while you're in the studio. They just want to see you. It'll be really easy. And like the second you tell me something's really easy, I'm like, it's probably not the thing I should be doing. So when I think about video, when I think about it for the content we're currently making, I want to give people the same experience that they had listening, which has taken a lot of time. And we just started putting out video episodes of Crime Junkie because I took a lot of time hearing from people, what does it feel like to you? What do you imagine? What is it like? All of them said, I think I'm on the same couch with you, and we're all just like telling a story, and we're in the living room. And we wanted to bring that experience to life because I felt like if I did video wrong, it could take away from everything I've done in audio. But I also think that there's opportunities for us to expand into YouTube, to TikTok, to Instagram, all these different socials in the short form. What are people responding to there? But I think you have to make specific content for those things.
Yeah.
It's
so
not
it's additive.
It's not just taking it away. And how do you bring people into your network, into your sphere, if you will, by creating something they like over here and saying, hey, you didn't know about us, but come over here, we've got something else. And I think that that's the way that you leverage that appropriately.
Yeah.
And you've made a name for yourself in audio as well, in the car specifically. What do you think about the new landscape? Like, how are you really tackling changes in consumption?
Yeah, so we're focusing on our strengths, right, rather than chasing trends. So I think kind of how you talked about video, right? We've been audio first all this time, and we'll use video where it makes sense for us, but audio, and again, there's been a lot of shifts from audio into video, like we talked about with podcasting. There's also been a lot of shifts into audio, right? And that could be print in particular, whether it's news articles or it's audiobooks, right? So there's just this, I think, shift into audio that is critical in terms of thinking about what should be audio first. And given our focus on the car, and we are doubling down on that today because it's really our stronghold. Audio makes the most sense in the car, right? And that's going to be true for many years to come, right? I don't think we're going to be in self-driving cars watching video anytime in the near future. And the car is very much the perfect venue for audio, and again, creating that companionship while you're driving or and moving around. And I think that our presence in the car is indicative of that experience, right? So radio, for instance, has just about 75% share of ear in the car, and that's across AM, FM, and SiriusXM. SiriusXM, has held this premium position in the car, and we've been really the leader there, bigger than any other streaming provider in terms of share of ear in the car. And that's been critical and important in our establishing our value proposition. And I think the car is also really the final frontier as you think about, you talked about advertising, in terms of digital ad-supported media. And there's an opportunity for us, particularly with the strength we have in the car, to provide other ad-supported opportunities within the car in a much more targeted way than, say, AM/FM could do. But we're going to continue to expand into adjacencies where it makes sense to support our core business, and that could be, of course, in streaming. We've talked a lot about how streaming really reinforces our core value proposition. We've launched across Tesla models. We have 360L. It's how our customers consume our service outside of the car. And as a technology, it supports broadening our reach. It supports more personalization. We talked about how do we enhance discovery, and streaming provides a lot of that opportunity given its two-way nature. And I think there's also just opportunities to provide more control of the content to really find what you want and customize it. And then we've made investments in podcasting as well, as you know, as we've increased the network of podcasts that we have across SiriusXM, and that really allows us to take all the advertising capabilities we have and extend it beyond Pandora into podcasting and make sure that advertisers have the breadth of that reach across medium. And we've been very supportive of the open podcast ecosystem, as we have with Crime Junkie and the rest of your network, making sure that it's available on all platforms, which appeals to listeners, of course, and advertisers as well, to make sure that they've got that expansive reach. But we found ways, I think, also working with you to create a Crime Junkie radio channel, which works really well for the SiriusXM audience and enhances the exclusive content that we have at SiriusXM. And then we talked a bit about video and social, and I think video for us, we think similarly that it needs to be additive to the experience. So we will have long-form exclusive video at SiriusXM, primarily in the app where customers are more likely to consume video than in the car. And so for instance, like with Howard Stern, it's very popular to have the long-form video in the app. But also, I think it's important, as we talked about, for marketing, right? You want to have shorter form clips and video, distributed on social. We think there's opportunities to extend advertiser relationships to be selling across social, audio, and video to create these sort of 360 sponsorship opportunities. And I think there's another opportunity for us to look at creating snackable forms of content within SiriusXM too. Take advantage of the shift, I think, in listener and in video towards shorter form content, but in a way that makes sense for SiriusXM.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about AI. So lots of changes as a result of AI, and there's voice cloning, there's generative AI podcasts starting to flood the scene. And what's your perspective as a creator and a leader in audio, and where do you see AI fitting in, enhancing your experience, or even maybe competing with you?
Yeah, well, as far as like the cloning, I like to keep them on their toes. I have a toddler who gets me sick about like once a quarter just so they can't quite do it. But I think that for us, I'm really committed to not ever do, so I don't use AI for any of our voices, any of our ads, any of our scripts. In the creative process, very much the way that you guys appreciate the human experience, so do we. I actually think that's our competitive advantage right now. The more and more we're going to be getting these AI podcasts and all of that, I think the more and more people will be craving that genuine connection and looking to have that human touch and feel. But we are using AI, I think, in really interesting ways. So obviously, in a lot of our IT and security, but what we've recently started doing is how do we use AI to help us make the best experience for our listeners? So I've always been very focused on the listener experience. I tell a lot of people this. The very first person I ever hired at my company was a fan engagement person to make sure all the emails are getting read, the DMs are getting answered. And what we've done is we have kind of integrated all of the feedback, all the comments, DMs, emails that we get into Zendesk, into this one place, and that's where our whole team responds from. And we don't use AI to even respond to them. We want humans interacting. But we've recently started using AI to aggregate the thousands and thousands of messages, comments, whatever it is that we get after a single episode. And then we say, what were they saying about this episode? What was the sentiment? Was it positive, negative, neutral? What did they like? What are the elements of this that they're talking about? So we can really make a feedback loop into the content.
So extracting the key themes.
Yeah, what are they responding to, positively or negatively? How do we, because it's just enabling us to do that fan engagement experience a little bit quicker to influence what we're making, but we're not being influenced by AI, we're using AI to let our audience influence us, which again is that circle I was talking about of that feedback loop and creating that two-way relationship, which I think is so important.
Yeah, agreed. That's I think very important to us too, and we see it similarly as being enhancing the experience as opposed to providing the experience, right?
Exactly.
So it's, AI and generative AI can be incredibly powerful when they're used appropriately.
Yes.
When there's an opportunity to go beyond kind of the gimmicky examples you hear of, I think, many times recently, and really dive into the real promise of it. And I think that there's a lot of examples at SiriusXM, whether it's the precursor of AI, which was machine learning, and the Pandora algorithm for music discovery, and the Music Genome Project. And today, I think for us, we're looking at ways to continue to leverage AI to support the business, and in similar ways that you talked about. Like, how do we use it to solve for this discovery problem, right? And really find ways for our listeners to dig into the content that they really love. And that could be attracting new customers into the service by using these other marketing channels, and really finding opportunities to connect with the right customers with the right content. Also just for our listener base, because the breadth of content we have on the platform is so extensive that we can use AI to better serve up recommendations as to other things you might like based on what you're listening. We can tailor your listening experience for the time of day or the location as to where you might be. And I think all of those things facilitate this need to really connect with the content that's really important to you. But in terms of, and look, we have synthetic voices. You talked a little bit about you're not using that today, but I think there's an opportunity for advertisers who are creating ads, to bring in smaller advertisers to leverage AI to create ads with synthetic voices, to adapt them for different audiences, and for them to scale their campaigns using AI, where it's not necessarily going to be relevant or appropriate to have a direct salesperson involved in that effort. So there's lots of opportunities, I think, to be more efficient and to provide a better personalized experience using AI. But where I would say we very much agree is that while I think you see this increase of technology and AI in creating content, and we are doubling down on humans creating content. Like, we really fundamentally believe people can tell the difference, and that is just foundational to the connection that audio provides.
I agree.
Yeah. So when you look back at the audio landscape and you think about getting started, and when was that? What year did you actually get started?
December of 2017.
It's not that long ago, really.
I say podcast years are like dog years, though.
I mean, amazing, though, what you've been able to create in that time period, really. But what are the biggest challenges you think and opportunities facing creators today?
It's stuff we've hit on already. I think the biggest challenge right now is discoverability. I think it was a challenge back in 2017, and just as there have been more and more podcasts that have come, as the space has kind of, become more consolidated into networks, it is harder and harder for independent creators to get discovered and to make those connections. So I think discoverability is important. I think the unique benefit that they'll have is, and it's what I tell everyone, is there's still stuff missing from the space. It's creating something new and something fresh. So when we started Crime Junkie, there was no show formatted the way that we're formatted, where someone tells the story and then you have a co-host really like sitting on behalf of the listeners. There's a ton of those shows now. And so I always tell people, don't just create the thing that you like listening to. There's so much opportunity for uniqueness. And as we keep talking about AI, uniqueness and that human factor is going to continue to be the advantage for someone new coming in, I really believe.
Absolutely. Agreed. So,
my bad. There are challenges and opportunities ahead. What's inspiring you today? So what's the message? We're running out of time a little bit, but what's the message that you want to leave the audience with? Like, when you look ahead, what are the innovations that are happening that's exciting you? What technology is exciting you, like specifically within audio? Like, where are we going? I said you're in the driver's seat. Tell us.
Yeah. Well, it's really inspiring, as we talked about, to see the technology supporting all of these creators, whether it be musicians or podcasters, letting them find new audiences and really pursuing their dreams. I think that's incredibly inspiring, right? That just really wasn't possible before the advent of streaming, I think, and increasingly with AI supporting that. But I guess the most fun part of my job is just seeing all the great talent coming through our offices and our studios, that, whether it's a new band or a new show or a new podcast, I love discovering new audio, and I can't get enough of it. So, I mean, again, seeing people come through the halls, that's something that not everyone can do. I wish we could find a way to scale that.
Your offices are the coolest offices.
It is really fun. Lots of people crossing paths in the lobby that you would never think would come together. So, it is really special to be able to have that, and that's what we're looking to really bring to our listeners, in the way that we curate. And I think also just there's this epidemic of loneliness, and I think audio really plays a special role in that. And I don't mean for that to feel self-serving. I really do believe, it's like what you talked about. You create this amazing connection with the listener. It's how you tell stories. And it's just fundamental to what we do every day at SiriusXM, is find these opportunities to bring storytellers, to bring artists and musicians to our listener base. And it's really inspiring to get to be a part of that every day. And look, we're going to continue to leverage technology. I mean, I think in some ways we think of ourselves as sort of the anti-AI, right? That we want to be focused on human creation and curation of content. But there's certainly a role for technology, like we talked about, in terms of how we deliver audio to our customers. And for us, that means leveraging streaming in the car as a complement to satellite to deliver more personalized experiences. I think there's, real demand for live linear content alongside, time shifting and on demand, and we can bring both of those together with our 360L listening experience. And it's easier than ever now with things like AI to allow for discovery in the car and outside of the car. And I think one of the things that's really exciting is to be working with great talent like yourself, and have the opportunity to hopefully give you a bigger platform, and have an opportunity to get in front of the SiriusXM audience and our loyal subscribers with different forms of audio that make sense for our service. And I think it's a really incredible opportunity to be part of SiriusXM, and we have it's a great time at the company. We have a lot more coming, and I think you and I can probably agree that it's a fascinating time to be part of audio, and the future of audio is extremely bright.
Well, thank
you for your time today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.